Welcome back to the Results Selling Framework podcast. I'm Keith Marchiano, Senior Executive Coach here at Pax8 Academy. It's October, it's Cybersecurity Month, so we're going to keep diving into this subject today. IT service providers selling cybersecurity. If a client or prospect had a cyber incident, their need's going to be high. It's more of an urgency. Probably scars are still there. So what do you do if a prospect or client has never had a cyber security incident? Nothing that's ever impacted their company. The best salespeople create interest and curiosity. So today we're going to discuss how to do this and a general role play on how to uncover the need when having conversations with business executives around security offerings. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Mike Giuffrida. He's president at Kyber Security, located in Trumbull, Connecticut. Mike, welcome to Cyber Security Month. Glad to have you on the show.
Very exciting. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some time with you.
Excellent. Yeah, glad to have you here. Can you provide a little background around yourself in the MSP world? Just quick intro about yourself, and you've got to provide at least one fun or interesting fact about you.
Well, all right. So I've been in the IT space about 30 years. Started as an intern at a large insurance company, rolling out PCs and, believe it or not, upgrading memory from 256K chips to 1 megabyte chips. So that dates it a little bit. Quickly figured that the large organization space wasn't for me. Went to a smaller insurance company where I was the IT guy and managed most of the things that they did there, and then went off on my own and started my own IT business. Managed services wasn't a thing at the time, so we were mostly break fix, blocks of hours, those kinds of things. I had actually gone to school for business, and so this is really where I had this passion to go take this technology knowledge that I had gained and wrap it into a business that I could go and build something for myself. So fast forward through many acquisitions, sales, transitions, etc., and here we are today at Kyber Security.
Excellent. That's pretty interesting. So you've been doing this for a while. What's one interesting or fun fact you want to share with everybody, though?
I like to do Ninja Warrior stuff. At my age, that's not necessarily safe, and my wife wishes I didn't do it. But throwing myself around from bar to bar and climbing the warped wall and doing those kinds of things like you see on the show American Ninja Warrior is not easy, but it's fun, and it's a great workout.
I bet. Wow, I didn't even know that about you. That's awesome.
See, look at that. You learn something.
Hey, you definitely have to be, man, that's some strength there, Mike. Kudos.
Well, it also helps, you have a rough day in the MSP business, you can get those feelings out on the throwing the shays. So
that's right. Oh my gosh. So, Mike, I've been coaching you for a while now around sales. You've been, with Pax8 Academy for a while in our coaching environment. And, Mike, I really wanted you here for this episode because you've had a lot of experience selling, for Kyber. You were part of our focus group back in March of last year in 23. Yeah, March of 23. Man, time flies. When we started putting together results selling framework. So just real quick, what do you like about sales? What kind of makes you passionate about, selling and getting out there?
The thing that I enjoy most about this business as a whole is being able to work with companies, learning about their businesses, the things that make them tick, what makes them successful, what makes them hum along and grow or shrink or whatever happens to be going on, and trying to find ways to use technology to help enhance their organizations. To me, coming up with the right solutions that are going to help bring other businesses forward is really exciting to me. And I'm kind of a geek around businesses that we get into where they're making products. I've always been in the service business. And so when I, work with a manufacturer, for example, that, makes some widget, I'm always asking for, can I get a tour of the plant? I want to see this thing. I want to see how that block of metal turns into that cool piece that you were showing us that's your primary product or whatever. To me, understanding how other businesses run, how people get into these businesses, and what helps them be successful, that's what really gets me out of bed. And you asked about it from a sales standpoint, but honestly, I don't feel like I'm selling anything at that point. All I'm trying to do is figure out what they need, and if I can help them with it. And if I can't, that's okay. We're not a fit for everybody. But when we find the right ones, and I find someone that we can truly help through their journey, to me, that's exciting. That's probably my favorite part of sales.
Man, you hit the nail on the head. Like from a standpoint, like my whole background's been around sales. Getting into IT, I felt the same way you did. It's like, am I really selling here? I'm just like be very curious about the business I'm talking to and what they're about, how they make money, how they lose money, what makes them tick, why they got into it. And you sit back and you're like, man, am I really selling, or I'm just being curious and asking a bunch of questions? And like you said, really, I'm just helping other people and solving their problems. That's it.
If I can help them, great. And sometimes I can't. That's okay too. Um, but when we do find that synergy, to me, that's the exciting part.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kyber's been around since 2017, right?
Yeah, the organization's actually been around since the mid 80s.
Oh, wow.
We
Okay.
rebranded as Kyber Security in 2017, really when we made a conscious transition from being what I would call a traditional MSP to a more security focused MSSP. And so that's been the journey for the last, whatever that is, 8 years or so. And that's when I joined the organization as well.
Oh, that's cool. What made what's the backstory on that? 2017, wasn't, you know, obviously there's ransomware and you started seeing some advancements, right? It wasn't some, some amateur hour when it came to cyber incidents. Like it was progressing more. What made that transition in 2017 happen?
Obviously, cybersecurity has been around for a long time, and our CEO, Lynn Souza, had known that I was running another MSSP before this. I had since sold that organization, and she really wanted to be different. And so we basically ripped down everything that we had as an MSP. We rebuilt our programs from the bottom up. We actually hired a hacker and whiteboarded your average small, medium-sized network, and said, okay, what would you do first? And then talk to the engineers. Well, how would you stop that? How could we detect that? Went back and forth and built our stack based upon the results of that effort, which has obviously evolved and changed since 2017, but we call that the viewpoint of a hacker. And so the programs we offer now, all of those things in our standard stack are mandatory. We don't offer okay, we'll do the support desk stuff for you, and if you want multi-factor, or if you want, network threat detection, or if you want DNS filtering, those are menu items we can add on. For us, it's the full stack or nothing. And there are things we offer that aren't part of that stack, like advanced security services, penetration testing, CISO services, those kinds of things. But as we continue to evolve our stack, and every year we go through and say, is it still appropriate? Are there things we need to change? Are there new tools? We keep that core of services in there that we believe are the right things to properly protect a small, medium-sized organization. I think for Lynn, when she had that vision, called me in to try to help her with it, it was about recognizing that cyber threats were the things that were starting, and really just starting at that point, to cause more damage to organizations than traditionally was, server crashed, hard drive died. The things that, we used to consider, downtime's a problem. Well, with the traditional servers and redundancies and backup programs and things, a lot of that stuff is pretty well mitigated. But the cyber attacks just still cause so much damage and value loss and reputation damage to organizations that she said this is really where we need to focus.
Man, that's fantastic. Great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was on with had Matt Lee on the program, and he mentioned um, like security focused IT service providers are it's a trust thing with their clients, and it's kind of to your point. You said, "Hey, this is the solution now." Tell me about like how Kyber like reevaluates, as new threats come out and how that's positioned to the existing clients so that way you don't have clients that are on some real old term legacy agreement when it comes to security protections.
Yeah. Well, what we do is when all of our clients, we usually have 3-year contracts. As as new technology or new protections come out during the course of their contract, we generally offer that as an upsell to those guys so we can give them the kind of protection that we feel they need. But on renewal, they get renewed at whatever the latest and greatest of the program is. So we don't really give them the option to opt out at that point and say, oh no, I only want the old program or the way it works or the way it used to work. And when you talk about as new threats come out, most recently in our stack, we added secure user authentication as an example. So you're probably familiar with the MGM Grand um, uh, ransomware breach that happened, and they were down for a really long time. They lost probably billions of dollars in an organization that size. And it all started because somebody was impersonating a user when they called IT and got their password reset. So now, if anybody calls us for a security-related trouble ticket, we do a secure user authentication with them. They have to provide us a multi-factor that shows us it's actually them before we'll do the security-related password reset, as an example. And it's something that's now standard in the program. That's part of Secure Infrastructure 2024, which is the latest and greatest.
Man, that's it. The world keeps getting crazier. We got to keep putting the protections
Yeah.
in place as at real time to protect our clients, protect these small businesses.
Right. At one point, user awareness training was optional, right? But no, that's part of the standard package. Vulnerability scanning used to be optional. That's part of the standard package. So really just making sure we're staying up with what's going on out there so that we can give them what we feel is appropriate. I mean, let's face it. If we're any level of MSP for them and they get breached, they're going to blame us,
Right?
right?
Yep.
And it's if we're covering any of that under the agreement, we're going to get killed on the agreement. But aside from that, we're going to get blamed by the client.
Yep.
So we want, because they all think their MSP does security for them, right? And so we want to do it as, there's no 100%, but if we can do it in such a way that we can reduce that attack surface as much as possible, right? Close down as many holes as we can. Be prepared to isolate anything that does happen. So if a particular machine gets breached or a couple of machines start getting ransomware, we can isolate those things and reduce the size of the problem. And then be ready to recover quickly. Make sure we've got the right kinds of backups and things in place to be able to mitigate all that and recover quickly and get them back up to full operational status. And that's our methodology. And it works.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. And like you said, you got to keep evolving. And to your point, it's now MSPs are being looked at. Hey, you're supposed to be providing this. The client thinks they're getting this, and if something happens where they have an incident or a breach, insurance companies are now starting to provide, come back and put liability onto our industry.
Right.
So
It's our business can't afford that either, right? So the breach hurts everybody.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So yeah, it goes to, hey, do this stuff for your. One thing that learn and hear from talking to a lot of security services providers is, do this in your own environments, right? See how it works. To your point, what you're saying is your team starts using it, looks for different ways to enhance what's going on to protect whatever's new out there.
Oh yeah, we eat our own dog food. All the tools that we give to our clients are all installed here. Looking for issues, looking for challenges. Do our own security assessments, which we do for every client every year. Full security assessment against the NIST cybersecurity framework, because things change.
Well, all the time, all the time. So what's great about being in technology. Don't have to
Yeah,
wake
sometimes.
up the next day and something's new. Right, sometimes. uh, so for the remainder of the podcast, what I want to do is kind of focus on qualifying and uncovering, if the prospect or buyer, right, cares about security, and uncovering, to your point, Mike, you said, are they a fit for us, right? Kind of started the result selling framework. So kind of
Sure.
focus specifically on the security side when it comes to this. Sound okay? All
Absolutely.
right. So like I said, you're part of the beta group when we're coming up with this idea of helping IT providers sell better. When it comes to security solutions, let me ask, what does the buyer of security services care about, and what are the things you ask to determine what they actually care about when it comes to minimizing or reducing risk?
Yeah, so the answer to the first question is going to be it depends on how big their breach circle is. So I've coined this term the breach circle, where let's say 5 years ago it was you just heard about things like the LinkedIn breach, right? It was just this stuff with these big companies, and that stuff wasn't happening, right? And then it gets a little smaller when it's maybe a local healthcare company, and then a little smaller when it was your friend's business, and the smallest is when it's happened to your business, right? And so, depending upon where they are in that evolution, they care about different things because they've seen it either firsthand, secondhand if it was their friends, versus it still being something where, oh, this stuff may not happen to me. So because of that, what we try to do is help them determine what's their risk tolerance, right? And we ask them a series of about a dozen questions, which all yes or no questions that helps determine, do they have a low risk tolerance, moderate, high, extreme, whatever, and let them determine where that would be based upon the answer to those questions. So there's some questions like, do you collect PII? Do you collect PHI? Are you subject to any compliances? And then there's questions that really hit them home. The last three are things like, would you protect against things that would cause, damage to your business? Would you protect against things that would cause damage to your reputation? Would you protect against things that would cause damage to your clients? And I've never heard anybody say no to any one of those three, by the way.
Hope not.
But the real point of that exercise is to get them to buy into the fact that security is a real thing, and these are the kinds of reasons why it should be important to them. And from that answer of where their risk tolerance lies, we then look at what's their risk profile look like. So based upon what they have going on for different security controls, where would their risk lie on a likelihood and impact type scale against the risk tolerance levels? And is it appropriate? If the risk tolerance level is moderate and they've got a bunch of stuff up in extreme, well, that's not a match, right? So we're going to try to help them get those things into their risk tolerance level by suggesting other types of controls that'll help reduce the likelihood and impact of those things that are there. And we've actually taken that tool to one more step and monetized it to help them understand the value that is at risk that they have. Wow. So we've got the ability to say, hey, look, you're a $10 million company, and you've got, based upon your current risk profile, you've got, $2 million value of risk, where, here's how we can reduce that for you and reduce that risk. And so that helps open their eyes a little bit to what actually the damage could be. What do they care about? They care about losing clients. They care about reputation damage. They care about downtime, right? So, a lot of it is the kinds of things they cared about when we were talking about the crashed server, right? And not being able to deliver for their clients, or losing a client because they didn't get that job out, or, people saying that they're not a reliable organization. But we've pivoted it to the security aspect of all of that to show them that these kinds of things can cause those same kinds of problems. What do they care about? They care about their business, right? They care about their people. They care about their clients. It's all about them. None of it is about us. So this is all just information that we can, relay to them. And if they ultimately determine it's not that important, well, okay, you're probably not a good fit for us, because we're interested in working with organizations that are concerned about those things, that are willing to invest what it takes to protect from those kinds of things, and work together to make sure that we can create this security first mindset in their organizations.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that whole kind of risk calculator you're doing to actually monetize the situation, because boy, that can add up quickly, just the human capital cost of it, right? Let alone the
The
output.
human cap, yeah, the human capital costs, fines, non-delivery, lost clients, lost prospects, all of that adds up into this calculation. Um, and generally, the numbers are pretty uh, compelling. Let's just use that, compelling. Um, so it's like I say, a lot of the risk calculators and things that you see out there wind up giving you some score. Oh, you've got a 1223, and that's not good.
Hmm.
But people, we found, didn't know how to relate to that score. What they can relate to, though, is lost clients. What they can relate to is lost revenue. What they can relate to is reputation damage, right? And so finding ways to monetize that helps them kind of understand the situation and the gravity of it, to determine whether or not they want to, invest in making, solving the problem.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Is like, like take the manufacturers you mentioned earlier. Like if they're manufacturing a widget, what's the software that drives that manufacturing of that widget? What's behind it? What happens if that is threatened or breached, if you will, and what's that impact from a standpoint of revenue? So I love that a lot, because that's the key. Is like you don't really look at it. Most businesses don't look at really the massive financial impact that it could make just from revenue, let alone reputation, client dissatisfaction, employee dissatisfaction as well, right? Holy smokes.
Yeah, have you ever talked to the employees at a company that's in the middle of a breach? They are not happy people.
No, I bet not.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I say, our whole mission is to try to avoid all of that, right? Is to try to bring them to a better
Yeah,
place.
good stuff.
Yeah, risk reduction. That's my story all day, every day.
So when you're like from a standpoint of talking through with a prospect or even a client about, hey, here's the next level of security you need, what are some of the biggest obstacles you see when you're positioning cybersecurity? You kind of mentioned they may or may not be a fit. Like, what are some of the obstacles or hurdles that you typically or normally are seeing when you're having these conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest single challenge is that most MSPs out there, or a lot of MSPs out there, can do all the things that we do, but they position them all as optional features. So our price next to somebody else's price is probably going to be higher. And so the first thing they have to decide is, do they believe that there's a risk out there that they have to mitigate, and then they have to mitigate it now. Because I think, again, unless that breach circle has gotten very small for them, when we pick up a client because they were breached and we clean up the breach for them, it's a lot easier sale than talking to somebody who's now shopping for a new MSP and we happen to get into the process, right? Because it's they're in a different mindset at that point. They know it's real. They know somebody's email just got launched out to the world, or some wire transfer got misdirected for several $100,000, and they understand the reality of that. So I think that the challenge is having them believe that risk and the calculations around the value of that risk are real, and that could happen to them, and that it would be damaging to their organization, so it's worth investing some extra money in. And let's be honest, most of these people don't know us, right? They haven't worked with us. This is a prospect. This is not a client, right? So finding ways to build that trust relationship with them early on is critical in a process where you only get a handful of meetings with them. You only get a handful of opportunities to tell them things, but most salespeople are saying, our people are great, our SLAs are fantastic, our customers are thrilled, nobody's passing out references from unhappy clients, right? So, all that sort of traditional stuff, it just all kind of washes itself out, and you've got to be somewhere above that. One of the things that we've done to try to help overcome some of those challenges is start a blog series, we'll call it, with video blogs. And it's to answer the most common questions that people out there are asking. And then we do a video of it where someone from our team will be on camera talking about the answer to this thing and trying to get that virtual FaceTime with the prospects so that they can hear about the answers, not just read about the answers, and learn a little from us. So we use that content during the sales process, right? So somebody says they want to have a meeting, and I say, fantastic, I'll be happy to meet with you. Before our meeting, I know your time is valuable. Here's the top 10 questions we get all the time with associated videos from people. It's going to take a little bit of time, maybe a half hour to go through all of this, but if you invest that half hour now, it's going to save us a ton of time later, and we can really focus on the needs of your business and the burning questions you have, other than how much is it going to cost, how long does onboarding take, why do I have to sign a master service agreement, what is defense in depth, those kinds of things that we spend a lot of time in the sales process answering these questions over and over again. But the byproduct of that is now, if they've watched the videos, I've gotten an opportunity for them to learn a little bit more about me or others on our team and see us a little more and help build that trust.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to throw you a curveball question, but you just preempted it. I was going to ask how you educate people to build that familiarity, that trust, but you just answered it. Education around certain topics to bring these things to light, to show them what other small businesses are going through, some of the basic stuff, right?
Yeah, and I mean, education is the name of the game, really. We try to look at ourselves as an education company, right? If we're out there teaching people, they're gonna hopefully learn something. Maybe they'll do business with us, maybe they'll do business with somebody else, but hopefully they're in a better position to do it. And at some point, if there's a fit between them and us, hopefully we'll do business together, right? But if we provide enough education over time, we can become that trusted expert in that space.
That's right. And I know you're focusing on manufacturing. That just, that rolls into CMMC and just really the challenges that industry really faces in general, right?
We have a whole special top 10 just for CMMC because we get the same, do I have to comply? What does the process look like? What's the timeline look like? What's it going to cost us? Because you're dealing with this, again, that same manufacturer that makes that widget. Well, if it happens to go into a Sikorsky aircraft, it's probably 80% of their business. Their businesses doesn't exist if they don't comply with CMMC. And a lot of people they haven't gripped that yet. But, the next few months we'll see if that rule finally gets approved through Congress, and we'll be able to really help more and more people out with that.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it impacts from a standpoint. If they don't do anything about it, it does impact the ability to make revenue, to get bids, right, to get contracts.
100%.
All right. So I was going to ask you a favor. Can we do like a role play, and I can be the salesperson for a little bit?
Oh, good. Can I give you a hard time?
Might as well. It's been a while, so please take it easy on me. It's been a while since I've been in the trenches.
Oh, good, yeah. What kind of a business am I?
I don't know. I don't think it really matters. I'll just ask you some basic stuff. But how about construction? That was my vertical. I'll at least know it if you throw anything in there. We'll wing it here, but what the heck?
Okay.
Hopefully we'll provide some value to anybody listening. So.
That's the goal. Education.
So, like I said, I want to focus on the, kind of to what you talked about, and finding out around, not, around, do they care about, security? Is it, is it something, kind of like you're talking about the circle? I absolutely love that. But really, do they care about it? And to get that understanding is from a salesperson standpoint is like, when we get to the point of talking about our stack, are they actually going to care about that segment of it? So, all right. All right, Mike. A few other questions here. Do you all have cybersecurity insurance?
We do. I'm pretty sure we have cyber security insurance. I know we get that questionnaire every year, and we ask our IT guy to fill it out.
Okay, okay. Do you happen to know how much coverage you get every year? Is it 1 million, 2 million? How much protection do you have for your business?
I think it's 1 million, whatever the minimum. Honestly, they allowed us to do. We knew we needed to do it, and so we got it. We used to do that checkbox, but then they stopped offering the really cheap one. Now it's costing me an arm and a leg, so I try to get the basically cover it, but the with a reasonable
Yeah,
premium.
yeah. They do the old adage. Here's the low offering. Here's the middle one. Here's the high one. We always take the middle one, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, have you ever had a cyber incident in your business?
um, not I would say not a successful one. I mean, we get phishing emails all the time. Um, and I think somebody clicked on some stuff one time, but it didn't like our systems didn't all come up flashing. You've been hacked, blah blah blah. So, um, we just so far we've been lucky, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So when that happened, did your what you explain to me how your current provider how did they kind of, I guess, inspect that or potentially remediate or investigate what potentially could have
Well,
happened?
yeah, I mean, they looked into the system. They said they changed some passwords,
Hmm.
and they said that that no data was stolen, so that we were okay. Um, and I trusted that that was all they needed to
Hmm.
do.
What what protections did you think that was supposed to be covered and protected? Did you think you were supposed to be protected by it or not? Was there any type of confusion around that?
Well, I mean, they're our IT company, so they do our security. They got the firewall in place and the antivirus on our computers and stuff. So yeah, I mean that's their
Hmm.
responsibility.
Yes, that's well, it's good. Doesn't seem like there's any impact now. Could probably give you, Let me ask a few more questions and I'll address that real quick. Um,
Sure.
so when you're kind of mentioning when you got your cybersecurity, insurance, doing that, and explain to me what happens and what you do when you get that annual cybersecurity survey from your insurance company. What do you do there?
I usually fill as much of it as I can out and then send it to the IT guys because I don't understand all that technical stuff. So I let them answer some other stuff, and sometimes we go back and forth because they're answering no to a question that I know is going to raise my premium. So we talk about it until I can convince them that the answer to that question was actually yes instead of no. Um, but generally we put it together as thoroughly as we can and then get it back to the agent.
Okay, makes sense. That's what most people do. Let me expand upon that. Explain to me, I guess, what happens and what your current provider does in between that survey, because you get a survey September of this year. You're not getting another one until next year. So what's happening in between to constantly be in making sure that you're up to par?
Well, I mean, I know they're always updating the antivirus stuff, and I know they do patches and those kinds of things. So I assume that's the care and feeding that needs to happen to make sure that we're protected, right? They manage the firewall, so they're probably doing things to that, to make sure that we've got what we need in place.
Okay, okay. one last thing from a standpoint of risk impact. How do you want, from for your organization, tell me how much risk you want to minimize, right? I guess, how protected you want to be, right?
Well, I mean, like I say, we've got the cyber liability insurance. So for the most part, we feel like, we got to pay our deductible, but they're going to cover everything after that.
Okay. What's your construction company? I guess, how do you make money? What drives the revenue here and growth?
We build
Build
stuff.
stuff. Yeah. Okay. How do you get those contracts?
Some of them are RFP bid type scenarios. Some of them are existing clients that, we've done things for before, so they hire us to do the next building or the next development. It depends on where it's coming from, I guess. But, I would say it's a combination of referral stuff, growth of existing accounts, and new business, be it RFPs or other types of bids.
Okay. Okay. And I guess what's the line of business application you use that drives all the RFP work, all the project work that's going on, and kind of funnels that to your accounting system?
Oh, that's Construction Pro.
Okay. Yeah, it runs things. What happens to there's a new software for someone to make.
There it is. Like that, I came up with it like
Yeah,
that.
why not? So if you did have a cyber incident, and Cyber Pro, Construction Pro was impacted, how would that, on a daily basis, how would that impact top level revenue and ability to, for your people to work, things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, everybody works in that system. So it would really depend on how long it was down for. I mean, we could stand being down for a day, but not a week.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So that was a quick role play. That wasn't too bad. I was kind of getting the rust off myself, but you kind of, for listeners out there, I had opportunities there to jump in and kind of say, ooh, like, Mike, I think you mentioned, like, they're providing antivirus. You had a user click on something, nothing happened, but did it? Yeah,
I threw you that
yeah,
bone.
yeah. It was there. So what I would do is continue to ask my questions, and then at this point, once I was done, I would then start, hey, Mike, let me educate you. I'm worried about, somebody clicking on something because something didn't happen today doesn't mean that the criminals aren't looking at what's going on and ready to strike at a later date, right? So, I typically when you kind of see that and hear that, we're typically human instinct. It's like we're quick to jump in and resolve it and put our superhero cape on and save the day. We want to continue to build the questions to understand really the true impact of it, and then basically put it all together into a stories that you can tell of, these things that have happened to other people. What would you add to that, Mike? You're the one kind of throwing the bones out there, right?
Yeah, there was a couple I threw out there that I wind up hearing a lot, and you didn't go down those paths. But one of them around the cyber questionnaire, where they say, we don't like the way they answered it, so we, try to get through it. Multi-factor is a common one there, right? Because the cyber questionnaire asks sometimes vaguely, but sometimes very specifically, how you use multi-factor. And organizations say, oh yeah, we use multi-factor because it's on email, let's say. But they're not using it at login, or they're not using it on every app they possibly can, or those kinds of things. So they answer, yes, we use multi-factor. The downstream effect, if they have a breach, is that the cyber liability company, and this was the sort of the extension of it, probably won't pay the claim because they said they used multi-factor, but there was no multi-factor to log into that machine or to log into that application or whatever. So they say, well, you didn't have the protections in place that you told us you had in place, so we we're not going to cover that. And a lot of people get claims rejected for partial or false, or partially false, I guess, answers on those questionnaires. So then when he says, oh, I got the insurance and they're going to cover it, I generally go into a little bit of a path of, are you sure, right? And talk a little bit more about vetting their environment against that questionnaire they filled out to make sure that they're actually meeting the sentiment of the question, not just some of the words of the question, because the insurance company is the one with the checkbook. I'm sure their initial reaction in their handbook says deny all claims, like that movie, But if they can find a way not to pay it, they're going to find a way not to pay it. They lost a lot of money in cyber over the course of the last half a dozen years. That's why it's got so difficult to get cyber liability insurance and why the premiums have gone up so much. But a lot of organizations look at it like, since I've got that, I'm all set. And generally when I hear that, I also then will go into something around, how would your clients feel about that? How would your employees feel about that? Because you may be, let's assume they do pay it and you're financially all set. What about the reputation damage? What about clients you might lose from that, from non-delivery, or whatever things that could cause disruption to their environment beyond the financial disruption that's going to happen from, okay, we paid the ransomware and now the insurance company's going to pay us back, or whatever those, the fines or whatever it was that they said they were going to pay. So I generally just try to educate people around the different facets of risk that they have during those conversations to help them understand there is no one answer. Cyber liability insurance is important, but it's like the last resort, right? Because, what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, whatever, right? We're on the prevention side. That's where we want to be on all this. The cure, yeah, sometimes it has to happen, but we want it to be as small as possible.
Yeah. Worse yet, now, it's not to scare our viewers, but the insurance companies are now just looking at it and seeing not negligence, but hey, there's this massive gap that my client was expecting you to cover it, you didn't cover it, we're finding you partial at fault, right? Suing. Now we're starting to see IT service providers being sued. So
100%. Yeah, it's a dangerous business.
It is. So yeah, you have to.
That's where you got to do your due diligence up front, right? I mean, there, in the state of Connecticut at least, there's legislation that says if you're following one of several frameworks, and the NIST cybersecurity framework is one of them, that you will pay little to no fines if you get breached, because they know there's no 100%, right? So you made a good college try. You made a best effort at actually protecting your organization by following a framework and meeting the controls of the framework. And yes, you still got breached because stuff happens. However, folks who don't take that kind of care going into the process are not going to get those kind of benefits on the backside from an insurance company, from the state, from the Fed, whoever it is that's levying fines.
Yeah, it's two in a row. Matt Lee said it. Mike has now said it. Follow the framework, right? Whatever framework you want to follow it as best you can. Protect your clients. I think that'll protect you from litigation on that side. So. Great tips. So kind of open it up to you right now. It's like, any final tips or advice you'd like to give our audience if they're kind of dipping their toe into security? Like you said, most of us have some sort of security piece we offer to clients, but any advice you would give to anybody listening?
Yeah, if you're dipping your toe, or even if you're more than dipping your toe, but you offer security services that are not mandatory, I would spend some time outlining the risks of not doing those services, and have that as part of your contract, almost as a I decline, right? So let's say you pitch your standard program and then you add on multi-factor and advanced threat detection and logging, whatever the things are. make them decline the services as opposed to not just accept them, because you then have a paper trail that says, look, I tried, right? I tried. They said they didn't want it. They weren't going to pay for it. Still wanted to provide them as good a service as I could. But then when the stuff does hit the fan, you've got a trail. It wasn't just like, oh, you never offered us that stuff. Man. You put your proposal together with the stuff they say they want, and you don't list the stuff that they didn't want and declined. Somebody at some point is going to go, well, we would have definitely paid for that. We would have definitely done that if we knew this was what was going to happen. So if you can find a way to integrate that into your contract with a forced decline of those things, mandatory checkbox set if you're using something like DocuSign, they have to check yes or no, so that you've got a little bit of paper trail on there. Probably isn't going to save the client for you at the end of the day, right? Egg's going to be on somebody's face. They're going to want it to not be theirs. They're going to blame the MSP. But it might save you from some of that other liability and litigation that you mentioned, Keith.
That's a great point. Yeah, just from the standpoint is, you're providing a service, to the point is like, if they don't accept that service, you said it earlier. Is there any optional service that you have, right? Is there anything optional at this point? And I guess that'll be a last question for me. Where, kind of explain, where would things be optional? I've seen that a few times where we have a bigger security, like a cyber advanced versus cyber, basics or whatever as a package. Why would they be different?
Yeah, in our world, the basic package has all of the controls that we believe are necessary to properly protect the business. The advanced package, which is not really an evolution of the first package, it's more of an add-on package, has things that are more around the cyber management of the business. So things like policy writing, CISO services, help with compliance questionnaires, penetration testing, some of the things that are really not the penetration testing is not important, but most threat actors going after small and medium-sized organizations are getting in from the inside more than getting in from the outside, right? The firewall's probably got decent rules, and good Lord willing, they haven't left RDP open to the world, and all that kind of stuff. Although we do still see it sometimes when we take over a network. But the things that are going to detect, protect, isolate, etc., threats are the ones that we just have them as core. So we don't have the silver, gold, platinum package anymore. That used to be the kind of thing we would offer, but really that platinum. I mean, I guess you can consider our platinum if you added on those additional CISO services and things. But it's not, we have sort of the infrastructure management piece, and then we've got the advanced security management piece. And, some people opt for both of those. Some people only opt for the infrastructure management. But we don't have here's what we think it should be, but we'll let you get away with only this package. That recommended column that was probably in everybody else's website back in the day, I don't know if it still is, that's the baseline for us.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. I think that was very helpful, and really just thank you for being here. Very insightful. Lots of value for our listening audience. I really appreciate your expertise and your thoughts around this from both a experience from a cyber, but also from selling this. I think that'll be super helpful for those that are trying to position security services in their business community.
Well, I really hope that it is, Keith, and I enjoyed our time together, as I always enjoy speaking with you. Hopefully this brings some value, and if it winds up coming back with questions, feel free to hit me with them.
Excellent. And anybody can kind of look for you if they have questions, find you on LinkedIn, right?
You can find me on LinkedIn, find us through the website, kybersecure.com. Always looking for new friends to talk to. I'm always looking to expand my network and meet new people.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Mike, for being here. I appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
My pleasure, Keith. Thank you very much for
All
having me.
right, take it easy. Thanks, everybody.
You too.
Wow, some great advice from Mike there. Just a lot of value, real world stuff. He's living it every day. So we can't assume that because we care about security services and our solutions and what they do, that the buyer will. We must generate curiosity and need. Why? Because our buyer really doesn't know what the do or do not needs are. They don't. That's why they have us. That's why they have us there. Kind of keep this in mind too. Mike mentioned this. If they've experienced some sort of cyber incident, right? They've got the scars. They still feel, boy, that discomfort of that cyber incident. Going to be a lot easier to talk to them and convince them versus somebody that's just looking for IT services. All of our clients care about minimizing risk to their company. We need to determine how much so. Some tips for things you need to uncover besides what Mike talked about. 1. Understand the prospect's current security posture and preparedness. 2. Ask questions to dig into their past experience and reveal problem areas, allowing you to tailor your solutions to prevent future incidents. 3. Understand their ongoing security practices can reveal opportunities for continuous improvement. So, need additional help? Go to PAX 8 Academy to see the course Result Selling Framework to help you sell better in general. To become more skilled, like Mike, reach out to me on LinkedIn or check in with your channel account manager at PAX 8 to inquire about sales coaching. So see you next month when I talk with and meet with Sarah Eric, and we're going to discuss sales leadership. Thanks again for coming into the Result Selling Framework podcast. We'll see you next month.